Okay, welcome back to my channel and check this out. This is actually two clips from 2018. This is where and how I learned how to make butter. Now this was taken at Angler San Francisco and I learned how to make butter at Saison San Francisco. And here's the thing, all credit goes to them. I never knew this technique. I thought it was amazing. And there's a couple ways to go about this. We've actually shortened the product or actually shortened the process, which is okay. But listen, the best way to do it is actually take the raw cream and then you want to ferment that. Right? So, or culture it, I should say. Then you make the butter, then you age the butter. But we use two gnocchi paddles, we shape it just like this, and then it goes into a pizza tray. And I have to admit, I never went back from there. Once I made this type of butter, it is arguably way better than anything else sold in the States. Now, here's the thing, I've simplified this process and we're gonna get into that in the video, but just take in consideration, I'm making unsalted butter so I can use it in the future for dessert.
Today we're gonna talk about butter. Is it worth it to make homemade butter? Well, I'm gonna be honest, I'm gonna give you a chef's perspective. If you're just gonna go to the grocery store and buy regular cream, whether or not it's organic or from clover or doesn't matter, then no, I don't think it's worth it. I think there's companies that make better butter than you would be able to make at your own house. Now, I do think it's worth it if you wanna use raw, unpasteurized, unhomogenized, grass-fed cream. Okay, now unfortunately this is not a paid advertisement, but I highly recommend this if you want to make your own butter, okay, or any milk substitutes. Yes, it is pricey and you can only get this in California, but the flavor, beautiful. When you make your own butter out of raw, unpasteurized, unhomogenized cream from grass-fed cows, it is a game changer. Very close to European style butter. And I will admit, I am a big fan. So I'm gonna show you how I make my butter today, right now. Let's go. Okay, please, for the love of Jesus, make sure your containers are clean, okay? Just make sure they're clean. You don't want to introduce any bad bacteria. Now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna shake up this cream, okay? And all I'm gonna do is, it's actually this easy. Dump it in here, and what we're gonna do is we are gonna bring it up, spinning slowly. We just turn this on, put this up, start off slow, okay? And I'll see you in a couple minutes. So once you get to whipped cream stage, you wanna keep going, but it's okay to taste it. Completely optional, but once I get to this stage, I actually switch to a paddle, and it's just gonna help us extract more liquid, and it's completely optional, but trust me, it helps out a lot, and you'll see what I'm talking about here shortly. But it's important to do this after your butter starts to break, or after your cream starts to break. There we go. Okay, so as you can see, you see all that liquid in the bottom? This is perfect. We're gonna let it spin just a little bit more, and then I want you to see how much liquid is in here, because I think this is a really important key. So once you get to this point, watch the liquid slosh around a little bit. You see that? That means it's completely separated. So I think what's really important at this part is to make sure you remove all of the buttermilk from this, okay? Very important. Okay, our next steps. Make sure you have a clean bowl. I like to use cheesecloth, but by all means, you could just use a colander with your hands. But I think what's really important is to really get most of this liquid out. And I feel like a cheesecloth is the best tool for that. As you can see, the butter is split. And I know this is gonna sound counterintuitive, but you wanna try not to work the butter with your hands, because the last thing we want is the butter to melt, right? So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna coat the butter solids in here in this bowl. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm actually going to take this butter lump and I'm gonna squeeze out as much liquid as possible with my hands. And this is the reason why I like to use a cheesecloth, only because you can get most of it out. So as you can see, I have to be very careful because I don't wanna melt the butter. This is gonna sound counterintuitive, but what I realized is it's almost best, get out as much buttermilk as you can and then transfer to an ice bath, okay? And then what we're gonna do is we are just gonna let this sit, okay? For about 1 minute to 2 minutes. And what we're doing here is we're letting the butter get super firm again, right? Because we've been spinning it, we've been working it, we've increased the temperature, right? So the butter that was ice cold, the cream that was ice cold before is not ice cold anymore. And so basically, yes, what we're gonna do is we're gonna rinse off some of this buttermilk, and also I'm pressing out more, but the ice water really helps us keep the butter ice cold. You don't want it to be melted, and our hands are warm, so it's gonna melt the butter. So that's why I transferred it to ice water, and I'm gonna let it sit for a couple minutes. Okay, next step, listen, we want to get our workstation ice cold, okay? And I know this sounds crazy, but yes, this is very true. So I have a clean towel. My workstation is clean and sanitized. I rubbed a few ice cubes on there, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna transfer my butter to my work surface. It's okay if there's a little bit of water. Remember, water and fat do not mix, so you are all good. Once you squeeze out most of that buttermilk, you're good. I mean, look how much I was able to squeeze out. So I think what's really important is just note, clean, okay. Okay, dip your hands in the ice water. So if you notice, I have my ice water close by. And now what we need to do is we need to knead this a little bit, okay? Okay, now I like to use 2 gnocchi paddles, but right now all I have is my crepe paddle. So we just need to knead, just like you're kneading bread. Yep, you see I'm squeezing out more buttermilk. I have my buttering tools, dough scraper, squeeze out most of that buttermilk. That's why you have to kind of knead. And I know this part sucks and it takes a while, but go back into the water, right? I know this part sucks and it takes some time to do, but it's so worth it. You need to get all this buttermilk out. So obviously you're gonna wreck a towel or two doing this, but I'm telling you, it's so worth it. Okay, here we go. All right, at this point, I got most of the buttermilk out. So now I'm not gonna go back in the water. We're gonna go right into shaping. So what's really important is keep my hands cold, okay? Okay, you can make whatever shape you want. Again, 2 gnocchi boards work better. But I'm actually going to split this in 2, and we're gonna make seaweed butter with one, and we're gonna make regular butter with the other. So remember, you start out with a rectangle, you will end up with a rectangle. But I found the easiest way to do this is to literally use a paddle and smack. All right, make sure you keep your utensils cold. I know this seems like a weird process, but all right, we're there. We have our block of butter. Now this is completely optional, but what I like to do is I like to make a design on it. Boom, look at that. Yeah, it's amazing. We're gonna put this onto a tray. And boom. Okay, next one is gonna be awesome. So basically, have no fear. I just wanna get the rest of this liquid out. Okay, I feel good about this. I'm gonna wipe that up. And then what we have here, nori. Okay, so we're gonna literally fold this in, okay? Now, unfortunately, this is not an easy process, but I like just using my hands and squeezing, really emulsifying it. You don't want, I wouldn't put this into a stand mixer. I would mix this by hand, just like I'm doing here, by you know, dipping your hands in ice water to bring down the temp. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Okay, this is a little bit too warm, so I'm gonna dunk it back in the ice water. I think it's really important to gauge how warm it is, because if it's too warm, basically when you go to shape it, the butter will stick to the paddle. So it's very important that, you know, it's ice cold. Make sure, squeeze off all that excess water. Okay, here we go. Seaweed butter. That's it, look at that, nice. And if you haven't had seaweed butter, let me tell you, you are missing out. Beautiful, nice seaweed butter. If you could smell this, it's amazing. No salt, no MSG, just sesame flavored seaweed. Nori. Okay, so I know you want to dig into that butter, but I highly urge to put it in your fridge and let it air out for at least 3 to 5 days. At least 3 to 5 days. Then what you're gonna wanna do is take a paper towel and blot off the condensation, the moisture on top and around the butter, okay? Leave it uncovered, trust me. And what's really important is you have to control the aging process now. Now, here's the thing, you can eat it fresh, nobody's gonna hate on you, but I highly recommend letting it mature a little bit, at least 3 to 5 days without touching it. Let it stay in the fridge, wipe off the excess moisture.